Happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. In our top story, emergency responders across the territory could get a new fleet of vehicles if a bill currently under committee review at the Senate gets a nod of approval. The bill, however, which would allocate some $8 million in funds toward those vehicles, is stalled in committee. News 2's April Knight has details.
A bill that would fund new vehicles for the territory's emergency responders was held in committee on Tuesday. The Senate Finance Committee held Bill number 31-0224, which would establish an $8 million revolving fund that would allow the purchase of $6.4 million worth of additional vehicles. This is on top of the 2012 Police Fleet Project Fund that's close to running out, according to the government. VIPD brass was there to defend some $900,000 out of the proposed fund to buy the police department some updated prisoner transport vehicles, utility trucks, and unmarked interceptors. The unmarked vehicles have long been overdue for replacement, according to the VIPD.
We don't want to continue to spend monies on the older vehicles because those vehicles should have actually been out of rotations already. And we should have gotten another replacement.
The current national scrutiny on the use of force by police officers drew attention to the fact that the last batch of VIPD vehicles purchased at least 2 years ago came equipped with cameras, but none of them were used. And according to the VIPD, it's because of a lack of policy and a means of storing data.
Such a poor excuse. If we don't have it, they don't have animal cars. We're just wasting money. Bells and whistles, GPS, and they don't even work.
The department is trying to fix the issues that has prevented us from being involved in these types of aspects that makes the department seem like we're going forward one step and then taking a step backwards. We are creating a lot of new policies to address a lot of issues within the police department.
The bill was held in committee pending an amendment from St. Croix Democratic Senator Kurt Valet. Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
Senator Kenneth Gittens, chairman of the Committee on Rules and Judiciary, is announcing a hearing scheduled for Thursday, January 21st at 9:30 a.m. at the Fritz Louette's conference room to consider Governor Mapp's nomination of some individuals to fill the vacant positions on boards and commissions. Senator Gittens said in the second block of items on the agenda, the Rules and Judiciary Committee will consider 3 bills that have already been vetted in their committee of jurisdiction. In other news, Senate President Neville James sent a formal letter to Governor Mapp on Thursday requesting that the Legislative Reinvestment Initiative Fund bill be vetoed, citing the possibility that it may contradict the separation of powers doctrine. The request came after the Senate President and Governor had several conversations concerning Bill number 31-0299, an act amending Title 33 Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 11, pertaining to government funds, which would allocate $1.5 million to senators of the legislature to use as philanthropic donations to community organizations in need of financial assistance. The separation of powers doctrine requires that a government be divided into independent but equal branches of power in order to avoid conflicts. Also at the Senate today, Senator Narida Rivera O'Reilly's bill to make sure the GERS sends out delinquency notices got pushed back from the GERS administrator. According to NIBS, the system is currently going through difficulties that would prevent the agency from complying. News 2's April Knight has more.
GRS Administrator Austin Nibbs appeared before the Senate Finance Committee on Tuesday to oppose a bill that he says would put even more hardship on the retirement system.
Seeks to require the GRS to provide written notice of all delinquent contributions to employers and employees by March 1st of each year.
Senator Nellie O'Reilly's bill would also prevent the GRS from charging applicable fees if the agency fails to send notice of the delinquencies. But according to Nibbs, there are strong reasons why the agency would not be able to comply with the provisions of O'Reilly's bill.
Because of the legacy issues, systemic and records that are currently being addressed by the system, The GRS opposes this legislation.
The GRS director said the agency is still dealing with gaps in information when it shifted from its old legacy system to the current one. Information that's essential, he says, to determine how much in contributions are owed by employers and employees.
There is an ongoing project to locate missing employee records, which are NOPRs, and reconcile and update the accounts to determine delinquent contributions.
Some lawmakers said this dilemma unfairly puts GRS members at the mercy of the system.
Not fair. I don't care what's happening. It is not fair to these individuals who have put in their time and are losing their assets, especially their homes, because there's some deficiencies in the processing at the system.
The bill was held in committee pending amendments by Senator O'Reilly. For News 2, I'm April Knight.
Detectives looking at crime reports. Detectives continue to investigate a case. They say at roughly 2:50 p.m. on Friday, January 15th, the 911 emergency call center received a report from a concerned citizen of the discovery of a decomposed body in the area of Estate Contentment. Responding officers arrived at the site and came upon old uncovered water well and saw that body. The well was approximately 25 to 30 feet deep and contained close to 3 feet of water, according to VIPD. St. Croix Rescue was summoned to the scene to assist in the extradition of the body. Count on 2 to keep you updated. On Saturday, January 16th, at roughly 5:07 a.m., officers received notification of gunfire discharged in Vestigata, located in Savannah. Responding officers converged onto the address. The occupant of the residence, Zebedee Schultebrand, 36, of Savannah, opened the door. He was searched, and officers discovered an ammunition magazine in one of his pockets. Schultebrand then gave consent to officers as they requested a search of the residence, and the search of the residence yielded 3 firearms with obliterated serial numbers, 2 bulletproof vests, and a large cache of ammunition. Schultebrand was arrested and charged with possession of unlicensed firearms, with bail set at $25,000. On Friday, January 15th, an arrest warrant was executed on Rupert Youth Walters of Pastory on the charge of first-degree murder in connection with the May 29th murder of Kenson Jolly. On Friday, May 29, 2015, as you may remember, officers were dispatched to the area of Kongens-Gata in downtown Cruz Bay. Following up on a report of a disturbance, arriving to the location, officers observed a black male slumped over in a patio chair, unresponsive. The male was observed to have several gunshot wounds to his body and was pronounced dead on the scene. The victim was identified as Kenson Jolly. Now, Jolly had been arrested on Wednesday, February 18, 2015, on the charges of first-degree assault and possession of a dangerous weapon in connection with a stabbing incident that occurred that evening. Jolly was placed under arrest after being positively identified by a witness as the individual that assaulted Rupert Walters. Rupert Walters was arrested on the charge of first-degree murder with bail set at $750,000. Keeping our eye on the economy, here's a look at the New York Stock Exchange with our Stock Market Watch. As you can see there, the Dow up 24, NASDAQ down 11, S&P 500 also up at 1. Coming up on News 2, Royal Caribbean International Cruise Line's newest ship, Anthem of the Seas, it made its inaugural call to St. Thomas. A reception was held on board. We'll have some of the highlights. Welcome back. That was a shot of the Royal Caribbean International Cruise Line's newest ship, Anthem of the Seas, which made its inaugural call on St. Thomas on Tuesday. The ship berthed at the West Indian Company dock from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It is the second of the new Royal Caribbean Quantum-class ships to call on our port in just over a year. And that's according to Joseph Bishelty, President and CEO of the West Indian Company. He said it was voted Best New Ship 2015 by a Cruise Hive Readers poll. While a welcome and plaque ceremony was held on board, Captain Anders Ingebrigtsen attended the WICO plaque ceremony. Also on board were the WICO Board Secretary Edward Thomas, Assistant Director of Tourism and WICO Vice Chairperson Joyce Dorr Griffith, WICO Board Chairman Randolph Knight, and WICO Board member Michael Watson. Residents in the territory, especially on the island of St. Croix, are awaiting updates from the governor. Recently, 3 scheduled ships have canceled their visits to the island, and there has not been any explanation in regards to the incidents. The territory relies heavily on revenues made from tourism, of course, which includes cruise ship visits. Here's more.
During the month of December in 2015, 2 cruise ships from the Holland America Cruise Line did not make port on St. Croix. In a private meeting held today, Virgin Islands Governor Kenneth E. Mapp summoned members of the Virgin Islands Port Authority to discuss the frequent cancellations of cruise ships that were scheduled to visit the island of St. Croix. Tourism industry generates about 80% of the territory's economic output and employment. The island of St. Croix receives less cruise ship visits than St. Thomas, and residents have already begun to make speculations in regards to why the 3 cruise ships did not come to St. Croix as scheduled. The Virgin Islands Department of Tourism issued a press release on January 13th stating that they acknowledge that all cruise calls, particularly to St. Croix, are of critical importance, and establishing the reasons for the calls not being confirmed is important. Fresh into the new year, Holland America's cruise ship, the Rotterdam, did not make its January 11th scheduled visit once more.
In my meetings with the individual cruise executives and CEOs, when you're meeting with the heads of companies as opposed to meeting with members of their staff, and they're underscoring their importance of the Virgin Islands to the industry and their continued commitment to bring passengers to the territory. That's very comforting.
As of news time, the governor was reported as still being in a private meeting with the Virgin Islands Port Authority board members. However, the New Amsterdam cruise ship, which is part of the Holland American Cruise Line, is host to the legendary Rhythm and Blues cruise that is scheduled to dock tomorrow at the Ann Abramson Marine Facility in Frederiksted. Stephanie Brown, News 2.
Now, the Blues Cruise is an exciting event that will provide some relief from the worry of many businesses that rely on cruise ship passengers to patronize their shops and restaurants in Frederiksted. Well, Commissioner of Tourism Beverly Nicholson Doty announced a robust marketing program, including $300,000 in national television advertising on CNN and CNN's headline news over the next 6 weeks. This new round of advertising, she says, also supports the Department of Tourism's sales team's efforts at this month's New York Times travel show and the upcoming Boston Globe travel show, where travel agents and consumers receive first-hand information. The Department of Tourism has dedicated $175,000 in booking incentives also. They will take this message to the 2016 edition of Caribbean Travel and Marketplace, taking place in the Bahamas this week, and to the media, travel agents, and meeting planners in Atlanta, Chicago, Minneapolis, and New York in the upcoming weeks. Virgin Islands Port Authority Executive Director Carlton Dow announced that the authority will be hosting a groundbreaking ceremony to commemorate the construction of the new aircraft rescue firefighter facility at the Henry Rolson Airport on St. Croix on Friday. The new 12,000 square foot fire station will feature modern firefighting equipment and accommodations for the firefighters. It will replace the existing fire station, which has been deplorable condition, he says, for several years. Dow said the project will employ residents of St. Croix during the construction phase that begins on January 25th. VIPA received a $6 million FAA grant. Monique Marie Mota, the Virgin Islands 2016 State Teacher of the Year, was honored before family members and education and government officials on Thursday, January 14th at Government House in Christiansted, St. Croix. Mota, a 27-year employee of the Virgin Islands Department of Education, is a special education teacher and the Modified Instruction Department chairperson at John H. Woodson Junior High School. The Virgin Islands State Teacher of the Year received flowers, gifts, and praise from the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Sharon Ann McCollum, and much, much more. Congratulations to her. On Monday, the Ulla Muller School Bambula dancers took to the streets to march from the Muller School to Crown Bay, then Limburg Bay Beach and back. The traditional trumpeting of the conch shell was heard to kick off the event as everyone in attendance lined the sidewalks with a message of peace. The group is known for authentic cultural dancing and have held presentations around the island. The aim was to keep culture alive and recognize all the efforts of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Be sure to stick around. Your News to AccuWeather forecast is coming up next.